Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. One of my dad's favorites, actually. That's a great one. I love it. And actually very appropriate after the last few days, isn't it? Blue skies. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy Sunday to you. It's an honor and a treat to see you here this morning. I was really doing some praying and listening and thinking about what I want to talk about this week, and I wasn't getting a title. And it just seemed like it wasn't coming, and I just had a pretty good idea of the kind of things I wanted to talk about, but it just wasn't coming. And so I think it was Thursday night, Julie and I realized that this week would have been Elvis Presley's 80th birthday. So happy birthday, Elvis. And so we decided to celebrate and watch an old Elvis movie. That's not something we do very often, but we decided to watch an old Elvis movie, and we settled on Blue Hawaii. And as I'm watching the movie, and actually really kind of as I'm going along, I realized, there's some spiritual stuff in this that and I got to thinking about it, and I know that many of you who, how many of you actually seen the movie Blue Hawaii? I'm curious. Yeah, I had to check and see, because I know some of you that are a little bit younger may not be as aware of the king, but but I was watching the movie, and there was an interesting storyline in the movie. And in the movie, Elvis is playing this young man named Chad, and Chad is returning to Hawaii, to his home. He's from Hawaii, and he was returning from the military, and was getting out of the military, and the expectation was that he would go to work for the pineapple company that his father worked for. His father was the pineapple king. And well, the first thing that he does, of course, is his girlfriend picks him up. He's got to have the girlfriend there, naturally. So his girlfriend picks him up, and then a nice little sporty sports car, and they're racing along, and she's taking him to his home, and he says, no, we're going to the beach. So he goes to this beach house that he and some of his buddies had built, and he goes out and he's surfing. And this happens, he goes on for days, and he doesn't even go see his folks. And finally the scene comes along where he's finally got to go see his folks, and he basically says, I don't want to work in the pineapple company. And they are just all, oh my gosh, what are you going to do? You can't just be surfing all day long. And he says, well, I don't know yet, but I know I'm not going to be doing that. And I got to really thinking about this, and I thought, there's a very powerful lesson in this. And as I was listening and thinking about it, there's a powerful lesson in understanding that sometimes we need to say no to what we are expected to do, to say no to what we're expected to be. But in order to do that, we have to be willing to make a change. We have to be willing to make a change sometimes. I came across this thought and this idea about change, and it's a story I really like. It was a farmer, and when the farm required a little extra help, a little extra truck driver for bringing in the harvest, they hired Dave, and despite Dave's lack of experience, they advised him, how to get out to the field and to just simply pick a landmark so that he could remember where to turn to come to the fields to help with the harvest. And so on his first day, things went smoothly until he did this until about his third trip, and Dave got lost. And finally he shows up late at night, and the farmer said, well, didn't you pick something to help you, a landmark or something to help you to find your way back to the field? And Dave said, well, of course I did, but the cows moved. And so I got to thinking about this, and I was reminded of a verse in Scripture. And this is from Genesis 12:1. And the Lord said to Abram, leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go into the land that I will show you. I will make unto you a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. And all the families on earth will be blessed through you. So Abram departed as the Lord had instructed, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. So I got to thinking about this particular verse in the scripture and the story about Abram leaving the land of his fathers. And there's such an amazing symbolism and metaphysical understanding about what this really represents for you and I. You know, Abram is not just this person that lived a long time ago, but Abram is an aspect of our nature and our being as well. And what I hear being said here is that we often need to leave what we are used to, what we're comfortable with, what we're familiar with, in order to truly live into the expression of our divine nature. We sometimes have to be willing to let go of our thoughts and ideas and belief systems about who we are in order to truly know and experience more of the essence of who we are. In fact, I would say that in many ways that is really the essence of what we're being taught in Scripture. How to get out of where we are and be more of who we are. To listen to that part of ourselves that really has a greater understanding. And in order to do that, we have to be willing to let go. We have to be willing to make changes. Came across this from Jay Trackman. He says, he overheard this conversation. One guy said, "What a frustrating day. I put $3 in the change machine this morning, and I'm still me." And so sometimes we have this idea, this thought, that we are to somehow look around us and find something that we are supposed to change from and for and to. And we've been instructed to really not necessarily listen and look for the things out here in the world to guide us in making those changes. Jesus said in Paul said in Romans 12:2, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Another way you probably heard this is be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We've quoted it that way from the King James for many, many years, but I like this translation of it. This is from the New Living Translation. Don't copy the behavior and the customs of the world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. This is Romans 12:2. And then you'll learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So I was reflecting on that and thinking about it, and what really came to me in all this is that you and I are really being called to our very, very special uniqueness. We're being called to experience and express more of the truth of who and what we are. And in order to do that, we have to sometimes start letting go of who we have been programmed to be, who we've been taught to be, who we've been taught we are, who we've been taught we're not. You know, it's fascinating. I love how Spirit sometimes just provides little thoughts and insights and awarenesses. We're driving here on the way to church this morning, and we like to listen to this little program by Ira Glass, you guys, This American Life, and we'll listen to a little bit on the way over here. And this morning, they were talking about an experiment that was done with mice that prove and show that our thoughts about mice determine their behaviors, or actually affect their behaviors. I won't say determines it, but it definitely affects it. Anybody hear that this morning? It was pretty fascinating, wasn't it? Well, not only did they find that it affects the mice, but one of the things they did, the experiment that was done, they put two different groups of mice, and one of them had a sign on it that said, "These mice, basically are dumb." And the other one said, "These mice are smart." And he gave the mice to different groups of people, and they were to run them through these tests. And what they found, of course, is the ones that were, of course, they're just regular old average mice that there's no indication whatsoever of their intelligence or lack thereof. They just put a label on them. But what they discovered is when they presented this to the testers, they went through all the tests, and guess what? That group that was labeled as smart did significantly better on all of the intelligence tests. Isn't that fascinating?
They switch them then?
I don't know. I didn't listen that far, but I do know that they did talk about an understanding that our thoughts and our expectations of mice affect how they behave. And they went on to show and talk about that our thoughts and our expectations of people will affect how they behave. You aware of that? Isn't that fascinating? And there's a real truth in this understanding that you and I, what we think about and what we think about others will determine how they will show up for us in our lives. We all have thoughts and belief systems and patterns that are oftentimes very helpful and very functional and really are very good, and people will tend to show up for us in that way. But we also have thoughts and beliefs of, you can't trust, you name it, fill in the blank. You got that one? You can fill in you got your own blank that you can fill in there, right? You can't trust them, or you can't trust, or we get these kinds of messages and programs. Oftentimes the message and program is we can't trust ourselves, right? And so we are in a place now where we are being called to arise above the limiting belief systems and thoughts and expectations that we have not only of the people in our lives and our world, but those that we have of ourselves. We're being called, we're being challenged, and sometimes we like to listen to that, and sometimes we like to run away from it. Sometimes we fit we're in that place where we're ready to step up, and sometimes we're in a place where we're ready to avoid. And it's valuable, I think, to simply notice and pay attention where we're at in that. I came across something from Alan McGinnis called Bringing Out the Best in People. The history books are full of stories of gifted persons whose talents were overlooked by a procession of people until someone believed in them. Albert Einstein was 4 years old before he could speak and 7 before he could read. What a dummy. That's what people would think often, isn't it? Were you aware that Isaac Newton did poorly in grade school? And a newspaper editor fired Walt Disney because he had no good ideas. Werner von Braun failed 9th grade algebra. Haydn gave up on making a musician of Beethoven, who seemed a slow and plodding man with no apparent talent. There's a lesson in such stories. Different people develop at a different rate. And the best motivators are always on the lookout for hidden capacities. They're on the lookout for the gifts. They're on the lookout for the strengths. And I'm going to suggest to you this is one of the things that you and I are also being called to do for ourselves. We have a tendency to really think about the ways that we are not strong, and we put a lot of time and energy into that, don't we? And we oftentimes have a lot invested in our weaknesses. We have a lot of investment in our weaknesses because if we find that one of the things that we have a tendency to do is if we find ourselves exhibiting a strength that we haven't perhaps exhibited before, funny enough, there's an expectation, there's a fear that there'll be an expectation that we'll always be able to do that. And then our perfectionism kicks in, and the fear of not being able to do that kicks in. And so we sometimes limit what we're able and willing to do in our lives. Well, you and I have a very special and unique calling, every one of us. There's absolutely no one in this world, in this universe, can do and or be you. I think it was, I don't remember who it was that said, always be yourself, everybody else is already taken. Part of our work is to learn to be more in tune with the source of our nature, the source of our being, and to really allow ourselves to express what it is that we are here to do and be. I love this work, and we've studied this work a while back, and I'm still just fascinated with all of the great gifts and tools and awarenesses in this work called Ask and It Is Given. This is the Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks and Abraham. And I want to read to you the short part of this here. Here we go. I lost my spot here. No one else can create in your experience. No one else can create in your experience. This book is about your realignment with source energy. It's about reawakening to the clarity, goodness, and power that is really who you are. It's written to assist you in consciously returning to the knowledge that you are free and that you always have been free. And that you always will be free to make your own choices. There's no satisfaction in allowing someone else to attempt to create your reality. In fact, it's not possible for anyone else to create your reality. Once you've aligned with eternal forces and universal laws, and with that which is truly the source of that which you are, then joyous creation beyond physical description awaits you, for you are the creator of your own experience. And there is such a satisfaction in intentionally guiding your own life. I love the way she says things. It just is, you are here to participate in intentionally guiding your own expression of your unique connection with Source. And you do that through tuning into what are your preferences in life. You make choices based on your preferences. Now think about this for a little bit. Emily Cady, in Lessons in Truth, says that that our desires are the best way she says is our desires are God knocking at the door of our consciousness, trying to pour something more into and through us in our lives. So when you have a desire for something, it's important for us to notice and pay attention to what that is and to listen to that and to follow through on choosing the preferences of our desires in life. And by doing so, we are actually honoring the creative light and spirit that is always available to us. And so part of our work in following our own unique spiritual path is learning to listen to what is it that we truly want and desire in life. I wanted to also, another wonderful section here that really spoke to me about this very topic. She talks about the evolutionary value of your personal preferences. Do you not understand the value of your preferences? For the evolution of your planet depends upon those of you on the leadership edge of thought continuing to fine-tune your desires. And the contrast or variety in which you are standing provides the perfect environment for the formation of your personal preferences. And as you're standing in the midst of contrast, new desires are radiating constantly from you in the form of vibrational signals that are received and answered by Source. And in that moment, the universe is expanding. The purpose of your desires, the purpose of your preferences, the purposes of the choice that you are making is to assist the universe in expanding and growing. And by the very act of following through on your choices and desires, you are leading yourself into the direction that the universe is trying to call you. And every one of us has a unique understanding and a unique way of expressing this. Came across this interesting little bit of trivia. Do you know that Israel is the world's largest exporter of cut diamonds? And they've developed a very special method of fingerprinting every diamond. You know, every diamond is absolutely unique, but it's hard to distinguish that sometimes. But what they've discovered is that if you shine a laser beam into a diamond, every diamond throws off a very distinct pattern of light. And you can record that distinct pattern of light and always be able to distinguish that particular diamond. You know, you're just like that diamond, you know that? You're just like that diamond. And the light is already shining through you, and you are throwing off this wonderful, beautiful, distinct pattern. And it is brilliant, and it is beautiful, and it is for you to shine. And it's there for you to express. And I can't do that. I can't express that light the way you do. Of course, you can't express the same way that I do. And that's what makes up this beautiful tiara of life, if you think about it. Henry Thoreau said, if a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it's because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. So as I was really looking at this, I came across a quote from Rollo May also. He says, in my clinical experience, the greatest block to a person's development is his having to take on a way of life which is not rooted in his own power. Be not conformed to this world. Do not let all of the thoughts and ideas and beliefs and the things that are going on out here in the external world determine how you are going to let your light shine. The reality is you let your light shine by listening to that inner place within you where you are connected to the essence of your being, and you take time to listen in that stillness. And then you listen to what it is that you feel is the highest and best for you, and you make decisions and choices based upon your highest desires and your highest preferences. And when you do that, you are moving into a way of experiencing and expressing more in life than any, in a way that no one else really truly can. So as Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. Find where it is and don't be afraid to follow it. Now the other piece of that is find your bliss, follow it, and then when you find yourself not in that space, when you find yourself confronted with difficulties and challenges in life, it doesn't say that you are never going to, just because you follow your bliss, that you're never going to have challenges. See, the interesting thing is, the valuable thing to know about our unique spiritual path is not only is, one of my favorite books is the book Illusions. And if you haven't read the book Illusions, it's I highly recommend, by Richard Bach. And in that, Donald Shimoda, the reluctant Messiah, says to Richard, it's in the path of your happiness that you'll find the lessons for which you've chosen this lifetime. It's in the path of your happiness that you'll find the lessons for which you've chosen this lifetime. And I believe that there's some real truth in that. I also know that it is in the path of your challenges that you'll also find the lessons for which you've chosen this lifetime. When you find yourself challenged by something, there's something there for you to learn and grow through as well. And so as you find yourself confronted with a difficulty or a challenge, I was reading a quote from the book Flow, and I can't pronounce the author's last name. Some of you are familiar with the work I'm talking about, but a wonderful book called Flow. And one of these things he says is that whenever you're in a working situation, you find yourself challenged, rather than thinking about it as a problem, begin to think about it as a puzzle. How many like to do puzzles? I love doing puzzles. Puzzles are fun. Puzzles are interesting. And if we look at the challenges in our life as though it were a puzzle, what we'll find is that our energy shifts. And we begin to experience it differently. We begin to work through it differently. And what we'll find is it will reveal to us an energy, a consciousness, an ability, one of our gifts and powers that perhaps we haven't really tapped into as much before. And it will allow us to exercise that gift or that power and that energy. And we begin to grow into a greater expression of who we can be in our life. William James says, seek out that particular mental attitude which makes you feel most deeply and vitally alive, along with which comes the inner voice which says, this is the real me. And when you've found that attitude, follow it. One of my teachers, wonderful man, he is a Sufi imam from up in the Northwest, Jamal Rahman. Jamal, if you're watching this, blessings to you. Jamal has this wonderful saying, and I think he got it from Kabir. And I was reminded of this. He says, always do what splashes in your chest. I love that phrase. Follow what splashes in your chest. And to me, that just speaks of what is it that's really opening your heart? What is it that really fills you? What is it that really helps you to experience that joy and that fullness and that upliftment of heart and mind and spirit? And so the lessons I've been getting and the lessons that I'm trying to share as I go through this are tuning into an understanding that we are continually in the creative process. And what we're being called to do is to awaken and to expand our participation in that creative process in all the aspects of our lives by showing up and being more of the truth of who and what we are and what we've been come here to do and be in life. I want to read this last part, and I think this is going to be our closing because I hear there's a ball game on today. I heard something about that, yeah. It is our desire that you become one who is happy with that which you are and that which you have, while at the same time being eager for more. That is the optimal creative vantage point. To stand on the brink of what is coming, feeling eager, optimistic anticipation, with no feeling of impatience, doubt, or unworthiness hindering the receiving of it. That is the science of deliberate creation at its best. So I want to leave you with that awareness and that thought. Move into that place where you are participating in a way in the creation of your expression in life that fills your heart and mind. Make those choices that are moving you in the direction of those experiences that are splashing in your chest. And when you find yourself confronted with difficulties and challenges, and you could, notice that that's a puzzle for you to help you discover a greater experience and expression in your life of who and what you are called to come here and do and be. Actually, it's pretty simple stuff. Not always easy, right? But it's pretty simple stuff. So have fun with that this week and enjoy, those of you who are into football, enjoy your game. And we'll talk more next week. Blessings to you. Let's move into our meditation time. So let's take a nice deep breath. Breathe into the heart space. And as you breathe in and out, I invite you in your mind's eye to imagine, to visualize, to see in the very essence of your being a diamond. And see yourself as that diamond. Unique in shape and color unique in texture. And know that there is a light shining through you. And as that light shines through you, see all the beautiful, unique patterns that that light is making in your life. And as you visualize and hold that image of yourself, know that you are reflecting the light of Spirit in magnificent and wonderful, unique ways. In different colors and hues, different shades, different awarenesses, different levels of understanding, different practices, different ways of showing up. And each of those is a gift to bring a greater knowing and expression of the divine into the world. It's not a light that comes from the world, but it is a light that comes from within you and expresses into the world. And it is a gift, a precious, beautiful gem that is you. Let your heart be filled with a feeling of gratitude and openness and willingness to allow that light to shine in just the right and perfect way that no one else can do. Thank you, Blessed Spirit. And so it is. Take a nice deep breath. Let your heart be filled with the energy of appreciation and love for the essence that's coming through and for the opportunities to allow that to grow. And so it is. Take another nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes. Now, before we have our young ones come down, it just occurs to me that I want to give a spoiler alert here because I didn't tell you exactly what happened in the movie Blue Hawaii. But it's important, I think, for you to know that Elvis, Chad, figured out that his gifts were in being a tour guide and was able to start his own tour guide company, and it ended happily ever after. Believe it or not. So those of you who hasn't watched it yet, I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you. But it's just a wonderful understanding message that he followed his heart. And that's what I invite you to do, to follow your heart and listen to your strengths and gifts.